Depression is something that impacts most people in the world in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's a friend or a colleague or a family member or a boss or an acquaintance who's struggling with it, or you yourself have struggled with it at some point in your life, or you're actually dealing with it now. And you've come here for some tools and support to help you get through it and into feeling better again, into feeling like yourself again, then you have come to the right place. Whether you are learning these tools for yourself, or you're learning them to be able to help support somebody else, or you just want to pass this video along to someone to offer them some tools and resources and researched back support, then this talk is going to be what you have come here for. I'm going to talk today about 10 non-pharmaceutical, psychopharmaceutical or medication treatments for depression. Not that I am here to knock medication in any way. Medication has its time and place, but it's not all the time and it's not everywhere. But it is an incredibly helpful tool that can be added to our support roster, to our healing journey, if that is what you need at that point. So, on that note, if you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comment section below. If you are back again, it is always good to have you. And if you are one of my shifters, make sure you identify yourself in the comments. It is always good to see you here. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. The button's about right down there. Like the video if you get something out of it. That would be amazing, and it just helps me continue to create this free content and get it in front of more people who need it. Either way, my name is Kristina, and I'm a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, and the creator of my membership community, the Shift Society, which is my exclusive community outside of this platform, where we are taking this work to a deeper level, learning a step-by-step process to manage your mind and emotions and feel more in charge of yourself and your life. You can get more information about the Shift Society in the description below. I help heart-centered humans break through the crap that is holding them back so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. Now, just as a caveat, what I'm talking about today is non-drug treatments for mild to moderate forms of depression. So keep that in mind. If more severe, persistent, debilitating depression is something that you are struggling with, then please do seek the support of your doctor or a qualified mental health professional. Now let's get into these and talk about them. Now, some of them you might be like, okay, Julia, I've heard that one a lot, but maybe there's some of you who haven't heard of it. And there's gonna be some that you're like, oh, that's brand new information for me. So go through and listen to all of them. Listen to the explanation of each one that's going to help you understand why that this is helpful, and then we will go from there. And as always, let me know in the comment section below which ones you're going to find helpful, and if you have any other suggestions about things that you have learned about, or even things that you've tried that have been really helpful for you. Everything that I'm talking about here today is empirically supported, backed by research. Some of these things have a little less research behind them, so they're still being tested, but I thought that I would share them with you because they are non-invasive and no risk, and so then, or little risk, I should say, little to no risk, depending. Just want to make that clear. But yeah, fairly risk-free for you to try, and as always, if it's working for you, keep doing it. If it's not working for you, stop doing it. So being able to tune in and pay attention to yourself and what is working, and go through and try some of these, try all of them, just experiment with some things. The only thing you have to lose is some time, but the opportunity to gain, to feel better, to move through the depression, to be getting yourself back and your life back is going to be worth it. So the first thing, and please don't groan when I say this. Well, some of you are going to groan and some of you are going to be like, yes, please give this reminder. Please share this information. But the first one is going to be exercise. Now, there has been a ton of research coming out around exercise as a very effective treatment for mild to moderate depression. So this is not one of those that doesn't have much evidence behind it. This one has a ton of evidence, because moving your body for kind of more of a prolonged period of time, they say 20 to 30 minutes is optimal, is going to get your heart rate up. It's going to release endorphins. It's going to help to mitigate stress, and it's going to release endorphins, which are happy chemicals, into your brain. And so it's not just, there's two parts to this. If you exercise just once, then you're going to get that momentary experience of that little bit of that high. They call it the runner's high. You can call it the dancer's high. You can call it the power walker's high. You can call it the rollerblader's high, whatever it is, but just continuous movement for 20 to 30 minutes. That is going to release those endorphins. So you're going to feel better in the moment. But with repetition and, exercising on a regular basis, because of that, repeated release of those endorphins, research shows that generally has an overall mood boosting result. And so in the moment, it's going to make you feel better, but then overall, it's going to increase your mood and really help to combat depression. There is some research that shows that moderate exercise, 20 to 30 minutes of getting your heart rate up and moving your body 3 to 5 times a week, is as effective at treating mild to moderate depression as antidepressant medication. Now, of course, that's not going to say that everyone is going to respond in the exact same way, but it is certain that movement of your body does release endorphins. Endorphins are natural mood boosters. So at the very least, you're going to get a good kind of euphoric feeling in that moment that you're doing the exercise. And it doesn't matter what that is. Put on some music, put on your favorite. For me, it's late 90s, early 2000s hip hop. Crank it up, dance around. You can go for a walk with a friend, do a walk and a talk. You can do yoga, you can take a Zumba class, you can go for a run, that's really easy, put on a workout video, go to the gym, whatever that is. Make it easy for yourself. It doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to go to the gym for like 2 hours every single day and do like a hardcore intense P90X or HIIT workout, right? Like, unless you love that and that's easy for you, but make it simple, but make it repeatable and sustainable. So exercise is a big one. And for me personally, I was going through something really hard last year, and I could tell that I was really on the verge of going into a depression. And so I was working really hard because I could tell the way my mood was going. I could tell the way my psyche was going. I was going through a really challenging time in my life, and I could feel myself kind of on that brink. And so I had to really get honest with myself and say, okay, what do I need right now? What's going to help me get through this? What do I need to be doing for myself to help me get through this really tough time? And for exercise, for me, was a big part of it. I would do actually pretty intense workouts, pretty intense HIIT workouts to loud, late 90s, early 2000s hip hop, which was just like this big release of energy. And it also just like helped relieve stress, helped release those endorphins, just helped me feel so much better. And that was a huge part of it. And that was this ritual that I had, and I actually did it every day. And it really helped me cope, and at times really helped me thrive in the midst of all of that. The next thing, and this is something I actually haven't tried, but I would love to, but because there's a bunch of research behind it and it's kind of interesting, I thought I would share it. And this one is light therapy, or you may have heard of SAD lights. So if this is seasonal affective disorder, SAD, S-A-D, is something that you struggle with when the days are shorter depending on where you live. If you live on the northern hemisphere, then in the winter, days are going to be shorter. If you live in a cloudy climate, then or a cloudy, rainy climate, then days are going to be grayer, they're going to be shorter, they're going to be drearier. Where I live in Vancouver, that is very much the typical weather between about November and April. And it's tough because there's not a lot of sunlight. And so it really impacts a lot of people's moods. And the more highly sensitive you are, I've got lots of talks on being a highly sensitive person. And a lot of you have watched those talks and have identified as highly sensitive. The more highly sensitive you are, the more sensitive you're going to be to light differentiation, to, how the lack of sunlight impacts you. It impacts your mood, basically, and your energy levels, basically, in that season. So for me, I didn't think that I ever struggled with seasonal affect disorder until one winter, several years ago, this is probably 10 years ago, where it had been dark and dreary and rainy for day upon day upon day. I think it was like this really long stretch of like several weeks of gray and dreary. And I didn't notice that this had really been bringing me down until finally one day the clouds broke, the sun came out, and it was like bright and warm. And all of a sudden I felt like I had this whole new lease on life. I felt energetic. I felt excited. I felt that kind of like that deep kind of excited feeling in my belly where I'm like, why do I feel so much joy? and it was because of that contrast of the dark to the light, because my body had been impacted by the lack of sunlight, the lack of vitamin D that is produced from sunlight, and it was having an impact on my mood. So light therapy has been shown to be an effective treatment for a lot of people to help them kind of get through, if it's seasonal depression that they struggle with, to help them get through that. Getting a sad light. They're called sad lights, which is, it's not really the best name because the light is when you're feeling sad, but it's to help you feel happy. So anyways, it stands for seasonal affect disorder. You can look them up and, ask around, talk to some people who have used it or have found one that they really like, and give it a try. I hear that they can be really, really effective. I have clients and friends that swear by them. So, light therapy, that's another one. The next one is to balance your brain. And what you can do to balance your brain, one strategy for this is to take some time at the end of every day and list 3 things that went well. Because of our negative bias in our brains that human brains have, we tend to automatically focus on the negatives. That's just the way human brains are. And it actually takes work to get ourselves into a state of neutral, and even more work to get ourselves into a state of being more positive, or at least recognizing the things outside of the things that are bad, the things that are not going well, the things that are challenging or hard. And so this isn't about like saying like, it's all good and being Pollyanna, sunshine and rainbows and discounting the stuff that's hard, but this is about balancing out the thinking. So your brain might have a tendency, and especially under the cloud of depression, to be like, everything is terrible, everything sucks, everyone sucks, life sucks, and just sort of have this whole umbrella. This day was hard, this happened, this was challenging, I'm tired, I can't do this, right? And just sort of getting into these really self-defeating thought patterns. Whereas if you're going to take the time at the end of the day to write down 3 things that went well that you played a part in, maybe for you it was like, I got up and I made coffee and I got started on my day by 9 o'clock, which was what I had planned to do, and I was able to follow through on that. Or maybe it's I got a call from a friend who was having a hard time, and I was able to just listen and be present with them and hold space for them, and without, taking it on myself and getting stressed out about their problem. And I was just really able to hold this really beautiful, non-judgmental, non-burdensome for myself space for them. Or maybe it is that you bake some healthy muffins and you're like, yay, I made those healthy muffins and now I have a great breakfast for myself. I'm set up. I don't need to worry about that. And I'm really proud of myself for doing that. That went well. Or maybe it is that you got into an argument with your partner or your child or your parent and you didn't lose it. You kept your cool, you kept grounded. You were able to handle the situation, the conflict in a clean and classy way. And you're like, go me, that was not easy. and I did it. What went well in the midst of the things that are hard, that are challenging, or that are a struggle? Make sure you balance that thinking with the little things that are often overlooked because they get sort of bulldozed over by that negative bias, or even if you're going through a hard time, by the thoughts of, the struggle that you're in. But taking the time to balance out those balance out those thoughts by saying and. Not discounting the harder stuff, but saying, you know what, this is hard and this is going well. This feels unstable, uncertain, and this feels predictable and safe, right? So really just bringing in that balanced thinking. The next one is obviously cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT therapy. Maybe you've heard of it. Maybe you haven't, but if you've been watching my videos for a while, this is essentially what the foundation of my teaching is based on, is cognitive behavior therapy, that our thoughts create our feelings, and our feelings drive our behaviors, and our behaviors create our outcomes in our lives, more or less. They influence our outcomes a lot more than most of us realize. And so cognitive behavior therapy is about really getting in there and digging out the unhelpful, the destructive, and self-defeating thoughts, beliefs, and patterns in your thinking that are keeping you stuck and struggling, down, defeated, depressed, deflated, anxious, overwhelmed. So really getting in there and digging those out, and then becoming more responsible in your thinking. Not positive thinking, it's about becoming more responsible in your thinking and shifting those thoughts in a way that connects with you, not just, choosing any old, I'm so amazing and life is so great, when a second ago you're like, wow, things are really hard right now and I'm struggling, right? And then trying to put this other thought in there that doesn't connect with you, or that doesn't actually make you feel better because it's not true. So really learning how to do thought work properly. It's not just about looking at one self-defeating thought and then just pulling any old thought that's positive or whatever and trying to think that and then getting discouraged if that doesn't work. It doesn't work because that's not how it works. But learning cognitive behavior therapy, and specifically the way I teach it, is mindfulness-based cognitive behavior therapy that is rooted in self-compassion. What I've found is that the combination of these three has been the most impactful and life-changing and brain-changing for the thousands of people that I've worked with and taught this to. So research also shows that cognitive behavior therapy is as effective, and in some cases more effective, at treating mild to moderate depression as psychopharmaceuticals or antidepressant medication. So that is a big one. Get yourself involved in some kind of CBT therapy, some kind of CBT support group. Come and join us in the Shift Society. That is going to be a great option for you, and an accessible option financially compared to doing more traditional group therapy, or more traditional big coaching groups, or one-on-one therapy. And we do a lot of incredible work in there in the Shift Society. So you can get more information about that in the description below. The next one is meditation and mindfulness. As I just talked about, this is work we do in the Shift Society as well, that mindfulness-based CBT, but even just practicing mindfulness yourself, or developing a meditation practice. There's tons of apps out there that you can do that. Now, just a caveat to this, what the research does show is that mindfulness and or meditation is not as much of a treatment for depression, but more of a relapse prevention. So after you have done the work through therapy, through CBT, through coaching, through some kind of group, right, that's teaching research-backed psychological methods for treating depression, once you have done that, then helping to prevent relapse with a mindfulness and or meditation practice. So just wanted to put a little caveat in there about that. That's what the research is showing. But again, there's tons of apps out there. There's tons of information about how to develop a mindfulness practice or practice meditation. Then yeah, it's easily accessible and something that you can do. The next one, and I found this one really interesting, is Saffron. There's more research coming out about the depression treatment capacity of saffron, that kind of typically seen as luxurious spice, or no, it's not an herb. I think it's considered a spice. It's a spice that is becoming more and more accessible and less expensive. But there's been some preliminary research showing that, again, saffron, and you'll have to talk to a naturopath or look it up about what the therapeutic dose is, get some professional advice on what the therapeutic dose is. But if that's an avenue that you're interested in, then give it a try. Because yeah, there's some really positive evidence coming out to show that it's effective. So saffron is another one. You're gonna hate me for saying this, because this is the one that most people struggle with the most. And this one, this treatment for depression, it's easy but hard. Can you guess what it is? Sleep. Getting enough sleep. And I know that it's kind of this catch-22, because often when you're struggling with depression, you have a hard time staying asleep, right? Because depression often, you wake up often when you're depressed, because there's sort of irregular kind of chemicals, things going on in your brain. And you can be things that you're worrying about, that you're feeling stressed about, that you're feeling hopeless about, and that can really disrupt your sleep. Often as well, anxiety goes with depression. So if someone's struggling with depression, they're also struggling with anxiety. I often say that depression happens after you're feeling so exhausted from feeling anxious for so long. Now that said, you can go between depression and anxiety every couple days, every couple weeks. Like that can just kind of happen. With a lot of people, they can often go hand in hand, can happen concurrently at the same time, or can kind of go back and forth between each other fairly consistently. And so getting sleep, figuring out a way to get sleep, talking to a doctor, talking to a sleep coach, doing some more reading on it, learning from YouTube on how to get better sleep, creating sleep hygiene, creating a sleep routine, taking some kind of natural supplement, or even if it's more severe, talking to your doctor about getting some more psychopharmaceutical support with your sleep to have that, to get your body back reset into being able to sleep. Sleep deprivation in adults can mimic mild to moderate symptoms of depression. I've worked with several people solely on their sleep because we identified that this was a huge issue in their lives. They weren't getting enough and they weren't getting good quality sleep. And so we just looked at that and I said, I bet you that most of your depression is going to go away if you start getting some sleep and we start figuring out how to get you better sleep. And then lo and behold, it's exactly what happened. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be the thing. If you start sleeping, all of a sudden, all your problems are going to go away and you're going to feel fantastic, but it's going to be a big piece of it, especially if sleep is something that you are struggling with. So don't take this one lightly. I know it's annoying. You probably hear it all the time. I probably talked about it all the time. But just notice, like I notice for myself, if I've gotten 5 or 6 hours of sleep a few nights in a row, and then I get like a 7.5, 8 hour night, I feel fantastic. I feel so much better. Speaking of, I got a really good sleep last night and I am feeling it. And, whatever kind of joy and exuberance and connection that I am portraying through this video is completely consistent with how I am feeling inside right now. So test it out, see for yourself, but sleep is often a big one. Next one is sticking to your schedule. Sticking to a schedule. Now, I'm not saying go create a really regimented schedule where you're like up at 4 a.m. and milking the cows and churning your own butter and doing, your meditation and your morning pages and your stretching and your, HIIT workout and, like doing all these things from the crack of dawn and having this all done before you even start the rest of your day, and then being completely exhausted and overwhelmed and hating your schedule. That's not the kind of schedule that we're talking about. But having consistency and structure in your day is good for most human brains. Having a reason to get out of bed, because if you're just kind of like, well, we'll just see what happens. I kind of have a bit of work to do. I'm working from home, or, like I can do this later. I can put this off till tomorrow, or, like this is not mandatory. And then using that as an excuse to sit in front of the TV, to scroll social media for hours, to not get out of bed. Now, as an aside, if you need some rest and you need a day to just like check out, a day or two to check out, that's what we all need sometimes. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if this is becoming a pattern and you feel worse as a result. You notice that you're feeling more hopeless, you're feeling more helpless, you're feeling more stuck, you're feeling more lethargic, you're feeling less motivated, right? Because when we kind of get into this pattern of making excuses and avoiding things, then it really can be disempowering, and we lose our motivation. And so getting things moving in a positive direction, in a healthier, helpful direction, by having a schedule and sticking to that, having some structure in your day, having things that you're doing, that momentum helps to breed more momentum. And it's a lot easier to move, to stay in motion when things are already moving. Takes a lot more work to go from inertia to movement than from being in movement and continuing to have that forward momentum in a pace and in a way and with a schedule that makes sense for you. Some of you love to have your day structured and scheduled minute by minute, half hour by half hour. I tend to be someone where I'll have like a window. Like I'll have this window of time and these are the things that I'd like to get done within that time, but I don't schedule it out minute by minute. And I kind of try to think reasonably about what I can get done in that time, and then I have a focus. Because I work for myself, there isn't always a lot of structure in my day. A lot of it is self-imposed structure. I create my own structure. I create my own structure in a lot of ways, unless I'm seeing clients or have a group session. But I find that if I just leave the day open, that I don't get a lot done. And then I feel kind of lethargic and lazy and discouraged by the end of the day. And so creating that structure is going to be helpful for most of us, especially if you are struggling with depression. Our next one, I think we're on number 9. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure someone will. Getting the support of a trusted friend. If you have one person in your life that you can go to, that you can talk to, that you can get support from, that you can rely on, if you have one such person in your life, count yourself infinitely blessed, because that is big. Last year when I was going through this really tough time, I had 2 people that I knew I could call anytime, who would be there for me, who wouldn't judge me, who wouldn't try to give me a bunch of advice and wag their finger, who were just there to listen, to support, to encourage. And that's just what I needed. Because I was feeling really vulnerable, because I was feeling really stuck, because things were feeling really hard, I just needed to feel loved, to feel heard. And I had 2 such people in my life that I'm so grateful for. And that really helped me, knowing that I wasn't isolated and alone. So having a trusted person that you can go to. Sometimes if you're going through a lot of things, you might need a few people that you can talk to, so you're not putting everything on one person, especially if you are a verbal processor. Then having a few people, like a support network, and just, a little bit with each person so that it doesn't become overwhelming for them. But having someone in your life that you can talk to, and letting that person be there for you. You'd be surprised how much people are willing to be there to help when people need help, right? And just as a caveat to that, as long as it's not completely overwhelming, you're not calling them 10 times a day, falling apart, or, having a fit, and then it can become a lot for them. But really just letting the people who are able to support you, who have the capacity to support you, letting them support you. The next one on this whole line of support is having a supportive community. One of the biggest reasons I created the Shift Society is so people wouldn't have to do this work alone, wouldn't have to do this deeper inner work, wouldn't have to figure out what's going on in their brains, why they're struggling, feeling stuck, feeling anxious or depressed, down or defeated, why they're struggling with their self-esteem. They wouldn't have to try to figure out and work it out by themselves, where they could be around other humans doing this work, focused on this, prioritizing their mental wealth and their well-being, and not feeling alone and not feeling isolated, and having that common humanity experience to be like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one who struggles with this, and not getting stuck in that shame cycle, being like, if people knew I struggled with this, they would go running for the hills, or, I'm the only one who's like this, what's wrong with me? Or, this is so awful, I'm so pathetic, this is a me thing, and this means that there's something fundamentally broken about me. Right? Instead of just seeing that anything that you are struggling with is a possible human experience. And last time I checked, most of us are human. And so that means that other humans are experiencing or have experienced the same thing, or at least something similar, because if you are experiencing it, it is within the roster of possible human experiences. So having that common humanity, feeling supported, having somewhere where you can go, having other people who get it. And another thing about the Shift Society that makes this different than just like a free Facebook group, or some kind of professionally moderated community, is that the vibe can go downhill really fast. And you've probably been in that, and I've heard a lot of people be in that, to say, as part of this group, this mental health group, or this anxiety group, or this depression group, and all it was people coming in there and complaining and dumping their stuff and talking about all their tragedies. And I get it, people are struggling, but I did not find that helpful. I just found it even more difficult and depressing and exhausting. And so we've curated a really specific community, or specific mood and expectation in the Shift Society community, where this isn't a place to dump. This is a place to come in and talk about what you're dealing with, talk about what you're doing to work on it, and then ask for help. Or even if people are feeling really stuck, being like, hey, this is what I'm really stuck with. I'm not sure what to do. Can I get some support? Can I get some suggestions? Right? So it's this very collaborative, community-based, supportive place where everyone is working on healing and growing and moving forward, and doing that together, and committed to working through their struggles instead of staying stuck in the cycle of those struggles. So you can get more information about the Shift Society there. If you have a group already that you are loving, then don't underestimate the power of that communal support, that common humanity. That is important for our healing and growth process, that we heal best in community, with connection, with support, with not feeling alone and isolated, especially when it comes to depression, because depression likes to come in and cloud us over and try to convince us to be isolated, that we are alone, that it's too hard to make the effort to go be invested and involved. But what that does is keeps us even more withdrawn and isolated, which then breeds even more depression. So don't believe that lie. Do something. Try something from this list. If there's something that that you have been wanting to try, do it. If there's something you were doing before and you want to get back to it, you're like, I was feeling so good when I was doing all these things, right? When I was staying on top of my well-being and investing in my well-being. And we're like, this is what often happens. We're like, I'm exercising regularly, I'm eating healthy, I am connecting with people, like I am doing my CBT work, and I'm really invested in my mental wellness, and I'm feeling good, so I don't need to do these things anymore. And then we're like, how come I don't feel good anymore? How come I'm struggling again? Right? And the reason why I was feeling good is because I was taking the time to invest in these things. So keep doing it. If that is working for you, then keep doing it. If it has worked for you in the past and you've kind of fallen off and, kind of forgotten or not made things as much of a priority because we're less motivated for change when we're feeling good, we are much more motivated for change when we're not feeling good, then maybe it's now time to get back to it. Try some of these. Let me know what works for you. If practicing mindfulness is one of the things that you'd like to try, then I have a free guided mindfulness exercise for you. It's in the description below. You can click that link and then it will get sent to you and you will have that. You can listen to that, and that is a really good mindfulness exercise for anyone, whether or not you have been practicing mindfulness for years or you are brand new. This is a really, really fantastic one that is going to help you bring your brain into that state of feeling more calm and grounded. Get on the waitlist for the Shift Society. Grab the 10-minute guided mindfulness exercise. Let me know which of these connected with you that you are going to put some effort into. And as always, be good to yourself, be good to those around you, and I will see you soon. Take good care.